Welcome to the Worth the Fight podcast, where we bring you powerful conversations surrounding the sensible and therapeutic use of psychedelics and plant medicines towards healing trauma. I'll introduce you to guests who, through their own personal journey and transformation, tell the Worth the Fight story. I'm your host, Matt Simpson, author of Worth the Fight, Acting for a Better World, a guide to spirituality, psychedelic medicines, and overcoming trauma. Thank you for listening. My next guest is Lee Davy, a modern-day samurai who has trained in a myriad of spiritual disciplines with masters and thought leaders of our time in the areas of ancient knowledge and medicine, healing, positive thinking, transformation, metaphysics, energy work, physical wellness, and other forms of self-mastery. If this high-vibe conversation and content interests you, Lee is hosting a Becoming Superhuman retreat in Costa Rica this upcoming February from the 5th to the 11th at the Ilamoa Institute, where he will incorporate many of these healing insights and modalities. There is still space available. I highly recommend Lee as a trusted guide on this path less traveled, and Costa Rica is where so many of my personal transformations took place with their unparalleled natural beauty and ecosystems. I've attached more information about the Becoming Superhuman retreat in the show notes. Lee is offering discounts to the Worth the Fight podcast listeners. Reach out for more information if you're interested in leveling up. As a side note, at about the 8-minute mark in our conversation, I referenced that Chicago has decriminalized all psychedelic plant medicines, which is misinformation. There's a resolution that has been passed by the city council. They will be voting on this in the next few months. All of this is good news, but I do must, in good conscience, point out my overexuberance, and I'll keep y'all updated on this resolution, as I think we're 75 days away from the vote. So very exciting times. Lots of good things are happening in this space. Without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with a modern-day samurai, Lee Davy. Thank you for listening. I've been really impressed with your content you put out on social media and the strong masculine expression that you have and share generously with our world. Can you tell us a little bit about some of how psychedelic medicines have impacted your path and your journey?
Oh, I love it. We're going to get right into it.
Diving right in, yeah.
I love it. Dive deep. Yeah, man, it's interesting. I remember growing up and saying, oh my God, I can't believe people do quote unquote drugs. I'm never going to do that. And for so many years, I adhered to that. And then I don't know where the wheels fell off, but I think it was, just the dismay that comes with our programmed societal way of thinking, in that, we're kind of made all these promises. And I think, somewhere around, grade 11, grade 12, I started thinking, well, shit, if things are supposed to be so amazing, then why do I feel so unamazing? Why do I feel so alien? Why do I have all this anxiety? And I really feel like it was that we're told we got to fit into this little box, right? And for me, it was like I just couldn't continue to fit into that little box. And at the time, it was the alcohol and then the drugs and that sort of thing were a way to
state sanctioned chaos.
Well, no, to put a Band-Aid over
Okay.
The pain that I was feeling, right? It's like I don't know what this is, why I feel so alien, why I've got this anxiety, but I don't feel like I fit in. I don't feel like I belong here. I don't even feel like I should be on this planet. So how can I numb this pain? Right? And that was my first, really foray into it, into psychedelics so many years ago. But now, having gone through years and years and years of searching and seeking and self-discovery and numerous different plant medicines, from psilocybin mushrooms to ayahuasca to DMT and 5-MeO DMT, now I'm able to see them as medicines, what they're truly meant to be, and And I think having kind of seen both sides or been on both sides, it's important now that with the legalization of marijuana, and I really feel like psilocybin will be next, magic mushrooms, that at this point in time it's really important for there to be guides. I would never call myself a shaman, but I feel like it's such an important period for there to be guides, for people to be setting the right intentions, to be having the ceremonial, ritualistic environments set up so that people can feel safe to explore and learn and enter these other realms, and get out of our thinking mind, get out of the beta brainwave pattern that we've been so programmed to be in, especially as we leave our teen years and into young adulthood. It's like we enter the beta brainwave, which is the logical, constructive thinking mind, and most people never come out of it. So yeah, that was kind of a long-winded answer of just kind of going from seeing them without any experience, without any understanding, feeling lost in early years of like, oh, okay, these are things to numb the pain. But they opened a door for me, a door of like, wow, if I can actually feel like this, with the help of these exogenous substances, maybe I can feel like this, you know, on my own. Maybe there's another level. Maybe there's more to, this reality than what we're perceiving, than what we're told. Hey, if I can't see, hear, smell, taste, or touch it, if I can't sense it through the senses, then it doesn't exist. And I think that early exploration, even though it was, they were used for numbing agents, were a catalyst to really opening the door and opening to my eyes to what is possible. And now I use them and I see them as medicines of transformation and evolution. And, if they're used and approached in that way, they can help us understand so much more about ourselves and who we really are and what we truly have, or what we truly are capable of.
Wow, beautiful. You speak very eloquently, so thank you for putting that into almost a poetic manner. What comes to mind for me is, and there's so much to unpack there, that the notion of the guides being important, absolutely, and psilocybin being, or magic mushrooms being next on the horizon. Really exciting news.
Oh, it's so exciting, isn't it?
That just hit me like a few days ago. In Chicago, the city council just made it's a non-binding, basically they've decriminalized all psychedelic plant medicines in Chicago, my home city. And I'm just tickled pink for what this means for people that are struggling with trauma, people that are struggling, people that are struggling in depression. Essentially, what it means is that the city of Chicago, and this is the way I understand it, and have interpreted it. Well, they're not going to be spending any city funds, any resources on law enforcement to hunt down people that are using magic mushrooms to heal or for recreational purposes. Basically, all plants, they're going to be focusing their efforts on the real criminals, those that are pushing the opioids. 193 people die every single day to the opioid crisis. Our country's on fire right now with that. And, a pinhead of fentanyl is enough to kill people. And I'm coming across people left and right where they've lost a loved one in the last few years to this mess. So they're really put in a tough position. Do we trust the scientists at Johns Hopkins and Imperial College of London and NYU, and with Michael Pollan's work coming out, basically giving a guidebook for Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, a guidebook for safely maneuvering this path. And it's my hope and prayer that my work, Worth the Fight, was written in that same spirit of how do we safely engage this inner journey so we can be healthy, happy, and strong for ourselves and our loved ones. And I think that's what it comes down to. You'd posted something yesterday that was quite profound to see. I was just like, I got a big smile on my face, and the timing of it was beautiful. You had posted that conversation of Ram Dass and Terence McKenna talking at a, and I referenced this in one of the signature chapters about the psychedelic renaissance in my book. That very same conversation of Ram Dass and Terence McKenna having tea in the 90s at I think it was a cafe in Prague, and Ram Dass, Terence McKenna had asked, and they had a really roundabout way. It's an hour-long video, give or take, and leading up to the final question, which is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, is like, what happened in the 60s and 70s? Where did we go wrong? So they were 15 to 20 years removed from the psychedelic renaissance being shut down by our federal government here in the U.S. All of the research grants effectively dried up. And so they're looking back, and in an eloquent manner, Ram Dass says it was the idealism and a sense of lurking righteousness. So what are your thoughts on that, and further, where the differences between this push that we see right now in 2019, we're 40, 50 years removed from that big wave in the 60s and 70s, and where we're at right now?
Well, it's interesting, Matthew, and I love finding that, because like, it's actually a friend passed it on to me, and it's like two titans, right? Like, they're just both so eloquent, and I don't know,
funny. They're funny. They're lighthearted and funny guys.
Yeah, and brilliant. Like, brilliant. I'm sure they could just go back and forth for forever. But for me, did you see, I actually posted something a couple days ago, 70-year-old prophecy. The earth will soon be swept by extraordinary rapid waves of cosmic electricity. Did you see that one?
I didn't see that.
Okay, so I'm going to try to kind of weave this all together, because I feel like, the 60s and 70s, it just wasn't quite the right time yet. With whether you look at kind of the Mayan calendar and the whole 2012 thing, moving into the age of Aquarius, and this prophecy, this guy, Peter, I have it here in front of me, Peter Konstantinov, also known as Insa Duono, born in 1886. But he essentially, with this prophecy, he's like, as we move into the age of Aquarius, and it's going to be a couple of years before this actually happens at the time of the prophecy, that this cosmic energy is going to essentially engulf not only our planet, but other solar systems and the galaxy and the cosmos at large. And this is a time when it's like, man, and the earth is going to be on fire. The earth is going to be cleansed of all of our sins and our shitty ways, and moving from the dark ages, the dark times, the yang power over dominant energy that we've experienced to date, into the age of Aquarius, where this energy is like, it's engulfing us, and I had a conversation with a friend today that was like, we're talking about vegetarianism and how kind of the old model or perception, even amongst bodybuilders, I love the gym, is that, you need meat, you need that kind of protein to build strong, healthy muscles. And he's like, he was in the health food store, and somebody was talking about, we watched a documentary called Game Changers. Really talks about the science of where nutrients and proteins and all that sort of thing is coming from. And I feel like this period in history, it's such an incredible period, because all of these tools, whether it's psychedelics, whether it's, the knowledge about really how our bodies work. I'm a huge Dr. Joe Dispenza fan. So the neurophysiology of beliefs, habits, patterns, and the science of change, changing the brain. There's an energy right now that is elevating us cosmically. It's elevating us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And I feel like the psychedelics, the physics, the quantum world, the epigenetics, guys like Wim Hof and breath therapy and ice, all of these tools, all of this information, all of this knowledge is being exposed right now because of this cosmic wave of transformational energy that is just engulfing us all. So I feel like maybe it just wasn't the right time, in the 60s and 70s. There's a lot of different ways that we could go into that, but I feel like, just the energy of, I'm very, more and more, I'm very attuned to, this quantum field, this field of energy that we're really surrounded in. It is us. Neil deGrasse Tyson says, you are in the universe, but more importantly, the universe is in you. And I feel like all of this stuff is, like, it's no coincidence that it's all coming about at this period in time.
Yeah, we're most definitely waking up to our interconnectedness, not just with each other, but our connectedness to the natural world and really to the cosmos. And what's out there is inside, and vice versa. So what comes to mind for me is, like, you speak of this cosmic electricity, this energy raising, the ascension, whatever people want to call it. And this keeps on coming back to me, is why now? And I think about we're potentially in a really tough bind as a species. We have some of the most prolific thinkers that I respect and revere, are saying that we're potentially 5 to 10 years away from a tipping point of no return in regards to this climate crisis. And where if we hit that tipping point, and this is usually tipping points are good and favorable and bring light and love and joy. This is not a tipping point this is a tipping point that would ultimately lead to the 6th great extinction. And so we're as a people, we're leaning heavily into our evolutionary driver to survive. And these medicines help people heal, get right, find ways to be of service. They connect us to our interconnectedness to each other and the natural world, which we're all in agreement that we can be better stewards and make better use of the resources here on Earth. But I'd love to. I'm going to check out that Game Changers too. I know that's a little bit off.
Yeah, I was reaching for different components, right?
Yeah. You know what? We're gonna scratch that and go into the neuroscience that you speak of. We talked on the pre-call about how that's been a fascination of yours, and you've moved a lot of your attention and study towards the neuroscience. And I had said on our pre-call that and this is just something that I believe, is that science and spirituality are two sides of the same coin. Can you speak to how your understanding in neuroscience has helped to better understand potentially these psychedelic misunderstood medicines and your place in the world?
Absolutely. Love that question. I really feel like this, I alluded to it earlier, that this journey began so a very long time ago, almost 30 years ago. And it's been the quest to know myself. One of my favorite quotes, know thyself and thou shalt know the universe and God. And there are a variety of versions of that, but essentially it comes down to that, knowing ourselves. And I mean, this body, the brain, this thing that we live in, I mean, it's capable of so many astronomical things that the average person doesn't give 10 seconds of thought to. Like the heart pumping thousands and thousands of gallons of blood through hundreds of thousands of miles of blood vessels every second, 3 billion times in one lifetime. Like, it's the same energy. I agree with you. Science is the conventional language of mysticism. So it's like,
Really?
When we when we look at science and spirituality, yeah, they're saying exactly the same thing. They're just saying it from two different perspectives in two different languages. Science is able to now explain, like, I'll go back to where I was, from the heart pumping the blood to making 10 million cells every second. We lose 10 million, we just made another 10 million. It's if we took a strand of DNA out and stretched it out, it would go from here to the sun and back 150 times, right? And we don't give any thought to the millions and millions and millions of processes that our body goes through every day just to, go back to food, just to digest a meal, right? And so I think when we start to change our perspective and look at life as a gift and something that we can connect more to, something that we can, it's like our material world is made up of 99.9999% empty space. Yet we spend all of our time paying attention to and perceiving the particle, or the 0.0001% that we call matter. When it's like, if we start to shift our focus to the 99%, to the empty space, to the thoughts, to the sea of infinite potential, unlimited energy that really is us and is all around us, we're going to start to change how we see ourselves. We're going to start to change how we fit into our lives, the roles that we play, the world around us. We're going to start to change, the energy that we have. So using the science of understanding, it's like, when we're essentially from 0 to 7 years old, we're completely in the unconscious mind, right? So any kind of interaction between a male female, the way that they feel about themselves, the way they feel about each other, about health, about wealth, those thoughts, those interactions start us in our unconscious programmable minds as little people, starts us down this track of thinking the same thoughts and feeling the same feelings. And then we develop the conscious mind, the intellect, right? But the program is already there. And it was before we developed the ability to say, wait a minute, mom and dad, wait a minute, whoever the primary caregiver was, I don't agree. I don't agree that money is the root of all evil. I don't agree the way you're treating yourself or each other, or, your views on health, that all redheaded people have tempers, whatever it is, right? And so we start down this track of thinking the same thoughts and feeling the same feelings, so much so that science says by the age of 35 years old, we become a series of subconscious programs, habits, beliefs, and they become automatic, like driving our car, brushing our teeth, judging others, overeating when we're stressed, so on and so forth. So most people go through their lives in this fashion without this understanding of why they are, or why they do things, or why they react to things the way that they do. But when you start to understand the science of it all and the science of change, I can then say, okay, I'm gonna start to focus on something new. And I've actually been doing this a lot in certain ways, but I've just discovered the expansion of neuroplasticity while you're moving. So again, I love to train in the gym. And so instead of like the pain kind of being the like, oh, this hurts or this sucks, or I'm angry when I'm at the gym, I've been focusing on like love and creativity and bliss and happiness. Like that's just my mantra throughout the entire hour. And when we're moving, and it doesn't have to be, it can be running, it can be cycling, it can be yoga, the brain is more susceptible to change. It's called neuroplasticity. And so if we're just kind of letting the default program, that programming that enters, from 0 to 7 years old, when we're completely in the unconscious mind, then nothing changes. But when we get in these receptive states, and psychedelics do this as well, psychedelic compounds actually are able to bind with the microtubules in the brain, right? So it allows us to change the brain structurally and functionally by what we're paying attention to, by what we're focusing on, by what we're thinking about. And if we're not choosing what we're focusing on, what we're thinking about, how we're feeling, then by default, that stuff that was programmed from 0 to 7, and obviously it continues on after that, but 0 to 7 is when we're most receptive to those programs, then by default, those programs run the show. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And what comes to mind for me is how do we disrupt those programs? Because I think so many people are stuck in, I think your words were series of subconscious beliefs that kind of crystallize when we're in our mid 30s, we're stuck in our habits or routines. And I think Carl Jung had said that changes in adults are the most challenging things to, and I totally butchered the wording, but something to that effect, that yeah, adults don't like to change. We don't like change. It's, our ego puts up defenses to change, although change is, as we all know, is the one constant in our universe.
Yeah.
And outside of movement, which is huge because of, and what came to mind for me when you were talking about the neuroplasticity is all of these incredible scientific reports that show, or studies that are showing that we level up our BDNF, our brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is highly correlated to learning. So when we are active, when we are moving our tush and doing, whether we're cycling, doing yoga, running, hiking, whatever, that it puts our brain, it puts us in a prime state for learning, for creative thinking. So outside of movement, are there any other strategies? I would presume that you have a strong meditation practice, but is there any other ways that you consciously disrupt maybe some of this this conditioning or programming or the human condition in itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I just want to go back a little bit because you said how do people, especially as we evolve in chronological years, how do people get out of this this kind of stuckness? And I think it's first being open to the idea that maybe our beliefs aren't all they're cracked up to be. Maybe like if you've never asked yourself, why do I believe the things that I believe? Why do I think the things that I think? If you've never asked yourself those questions, that may be a good place to start, right? Because then you start to be open to, well, have I just, kind of surrendered and believed whatever I've been told, and then that's become the way that I've thought and felt for my entire life. And then again, 35 years old, it's like, the average person thinks 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day, and 90% of them are exactly the same as the day before. So first, it's having an understanding of, this is how, this is what science tells us has happened, right? So if I want to change, I first got to understand how I got to be the way that I am, how why do things trigger me to, get upset or these things. And then understanding that, okay, it's definitely not going to be easy because I've had 35 or 45 or 55 or 65 years of thinking and feeling this way. And when you think the thoughts, it produces the feelings or the chemistry in the body. So you're signaling certain genes in certain ways. Genes are protein producing machines, and proteins create, if the proteins are unhealthy, they're going to create unhealthy cells. Whereas if you start to focus on and think about, like I said, joy, love, connection, oneness, service, happiness, gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. When you start to really tune your mind to all these things, right, you're going to start to build new neurology in the brain. As you build new neurology in the brain and you're continuing to come back to these thoughts, right, you're going to start to signal a different chemistry in the body. You're going to start to feel differently. You're going to start to, that chemistry, you're going to start to signal different genes in different ways. And it's like turning one light switch off and turning another one on. And if you keep doing it, keep returning to it over and over and over and over and over again, then those genes, you're going to actually start producing healthier proteins, healthier cells. You're going to start to feel better. You're going to start to have more energy. And so in terms of, Yeah, practices that I have, I'm at the gym almost every day. I do breath work every day. I do meditation every day. I do ice baths, and they're all.
Every day in the ice baths? That's impressive.
Yes, sir. We've my buddy and I bought a freezer, so we keep the freezer at 30 degrees. There's ice around the edge, and we keep it at 30 degrees. I mean, we're in Canada in the summertime, right? So it's hard to find ice water. So we just keep a freezer in the backyard.
Wow.
Yeah.
I get into the Wim Hof, so I appreciate that, what it
Yeah.
takes to dive into that
Oh,
water, even for 90 seconds, 2 minutes to get a little flash reset of
yeah.
the nervous system.
It's so good. It's so good. So yeah, I mean, all these things are, I guess, doorways or tools that you can use to start to, for lack of better terminology, hack the brain, hack the system. But it is shown, and this is I've just actually been researching this. So I actually want to read a little bit for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Um, Talks about anchoring these states are the most powerful way to train your brain, because when exercising, the brain is in its most neuroplastic state, right? Neuroplasticity is the growth of new brain cells. So as you said, Matthew, muscles begin releasing something called myokines. So that's the circulatory enzymes that influence all the cells of the body, things like brain-derived neurotrophic factor, nerve growth factors, IGF, and brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And it promotes the growth and maturation of nerve cells, brain health. Higher levels correlate with improved cognitive performance. So when we're moving, and this is something that I've just been playing with over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, and I'll tell you, like, I don't fully understand what's going on with me right now, but I'm more connected. I'm stronger in the gym. I'm like, I feel unbelievable. I'm happier, and all I'm doing
Right.
is like tuning to. It's just like a mantra, like love, happiness, bliss, gratitude, service, and that's while I'm, lifting heavy weight, or while I'm doing my breath in the freezer in 30-degree water. And it's like, it's just, there's something physiologically going on with me, and neurologically, that is, and I've been at some form of personal growth for a lot of years, and something new is happening right now. Start with where you're at, for your listeners, I would say.
Ooh, I like that aspect of not biting off more than you can chew,
Yeah.
or where you're at, and start. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please.
No, I was just gonna, creating these little habits, and elevating on the habits, and taking that kind of a scientific approach of doing what works and doing that more, and taking little experiments, and trying different things out. If it doesn't work, stop doing it. Do it
Yeah,
more of what works.
absolutely. I have a friend that says more isn't better. Better is better, and better leads to more. Right? So just like you said, if you're, and especially people that are, and I hear this one all the time, and it's not to belittle anyone that is quote unquote busy, but that's another one of those. Remember, we talked about band-aids early on. Busy is another one of those band-aids, so that we don't have to deal with the self, so that we don't have to feel, so that we don't have to, go within and ask the big questions. So whether it's drugs like cocaine or alcohol, because not all drugs are the same. And like I said, psychedelics, I wouldn't classify as drugs. I'd classify as medicine. Or whether it's busyness, or, these are all mechanisms of numbing. And I feel like, if we can just settle ourselves long enough, and if you are busy and you do have kids and you do have all this stuff going on, carve out 10 minutes. Wake up 10 minutes earlier, go to bed 10 minutes later. I actually did a post the other day where I had 5 plus a bonus one. So if you hold your hands over your head for 2 minutes straight, as if you just want to race, it's been shown that it improves your testosterone levels and decreases cortisol. All you need is 2 minutes. You can do breath while you're doing that, right? So you can do, I don't know, in 2 minutes, you could probably do 50 or 60 like Wim Hof type breaths, right? So it's kind of two
a
count
nice
in.
little 2-minute trick there that I think everybody can find 2 minutes.
Absolutely, right? Smile while you're doing that. Smile while you're got your hands over your head, while you're doing these deep breaths. And if you can put a fourth thing in there, be grateful. Or just go around in your head a bit the things that you love, and gratitude and joy and peace and oneness and connection and worthiness and happiness, and I think start with 2 minutes, and build up to 4, then do 6, then do 10, and I think even with those small little things, you're going to start to feel an increase. If you continue to do that every single day, you're going to start to feel an accumulation difference. Another great one is shaking, and it sounds funny, but if you look at, a deer that's being chased by a wolf, as soon as that chase is done, the deer will continue to shake. So it's like it's shaking that anxiousness, the nerves, and then it stops and it comes back to homeostasis. We don't shake, we don't move, we don't do anything to let go of the anxiety and the stresses of the day. So it just starts to compile and starts to override and overtake the system until a point where, and it's estimated about 70% of the time, people are in a low grade level of stress. And that continuous stress is going to lead to disease. So take 5 minutes at the end of the day and shake the shit out of yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Amy Nagoski wrote a book. It was a book about sex. I forget the name of it. She's got a really big TED Talk that got a lot of love and I think 2, 3, 4 million viewers. But I read her book, and she had a profound way of looking at our fight, flight, freeze response. Well, you don't often hear fight, flight, freeze, but we've been conditioned to freeze. That's not necessarily good for cycling out the trauma. Trauma is a part of life. We're all traumatized more or less. You turn on TV for a little bit, you're going to get a little trauma.
Yeah.
And but our early year traumas that we have and we experience that imprint, I think, to a higher degree, certainly the early years of childhood development, when we're still, growing our faculties, we freeze and we never have that time to shake out. Like you said, a deer that is chased by a wolf and gets away, is gonna shake out. Same thing with a dog that gets hurt. They make a yelp, and then they get kind of gnarly with the shake for a few seconds, and then they're fine. They've let it go. It's gone. It's done. It's been reconciled. But we as humans, this prefrontal cortex that allows for self-awareness, we ruminate on these things over and over and over and over and get stuck in these loops that often are at root for people being stuck. And I know from my personal experience and having a profound healing experience with psychedelics a little bit later in life, in my mid 30s, there was some shaking involved, of almost involuntary shaking of my body having to release and let go of, and to complete the trauma cycle, and to complete the letting go and honoring that trauma. And this might not be conventional in the way that we look at things, but that's why a lot of people are stuck in their loops, and they're still holding that trauma in their nervous system. And maybe a good shake is what is needed to mobilize that toxicity, and ultimately to when it's mobilized, we can make it aware, and then we can let go consciously, let that go.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are so many tools, and I think, once you're open to the idea of change and transformation, and I'll go back to, what I started to say earlier about, start from where you're at, right? And for me, this journey started with personal growth so many years ago, right? And so if it's like starting to eat healthier, that's a form of personal growth. If it's starting to move, whether it's yoga or running or the gym or whatever, That's a form of personal growth, whether it's, exploring psychedelics and opening up your mind and transformation, or understanding neuroscience, or taking on breath work, or sitting in an ice cold shower. Those are all forms of personal growth. Those are all forms of starting to understand the beauty of the mind, body, spirit mechanism, this matrix from which we're all created. So embrace that. Start from where you're at. Do the 2-minute thing with the hands over the head, and I can send you more information about that, Matthew, so you have it. But
please do.
I think the openness leads to curiosity. The curiosity leads to experimentation, and the experimentation will lead you to knowing and understanding yourself, right? And these are the tools at this time that are available to us, from psychedelics to breath to neurophysiology, epigenetics, unified physics. These are all of the perspectives and tools that have helped me in my life, and it's what I share with people now. And it's like every day there's a new level of understanding of what our brain and our bodies are capable of. So it's, I think the information, the tools are there for us to access. We just have to be courageous enough to look.
Well said. Beautiful. Thank you for the dose of high vibe positivity. I appreciate your expression and sharing, openly what has brought you to this point in your life, and how these psychedelics have impacted you. And just, I think your way of looking at them as just another tool is a very healthy orientation, because there are so many tools that are out there. I always say that psychedelics are a very disruptive technology and tool for people that are stuck in their trauma. It's an aggressive form of getting out of the trauma. I love this, and I think I quoted this on an earlier podcast, but Dr. Peter Attia he's got a podcast that is just very kind of cutting edge in terms of medical and science, and he's got some differing views of looking at the whole medical paradigm. And he says, and he's an advocate of psychedelic healing. He's been on the Tim Ferriss show, and he says, we can't always talk ourselves out of something that we didn't talk ourselves into. And so often people are traumatized in the early years of childhood development, and therapy is helpful, and all these tools can be helpful. But at certain stages of our growth and our evolution, we need an aggressive form to get at the root of the trauma, see what needs to be seen, feel what needs to be felt, let that shit go, get a plan for growing and getting back on track to being healthy, happy, and strong for ourselves and our circles of influence.
Absolutely. That's why I do, like, I have so many practices, because it's like, I don't know, in my eyes and my mind, it's always been, well, if one thing's going to help, then two things are going to help more.
Yeah,
so it's like
things on top.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So it's like, if we perceive these things as tools, or another way I like to look at everything is frequency. If we look at everything as frequency, and we start to clean up, and optimize our food, we start to structure our water, we are really aware of the thoughts that we think and the words that we speak and the interactions that we have, we're going to start to optimize all of the frequencies that are within and around us. And we're going to start to operate at a completely unoptimal, a higher frequency, a higher level. And kind of going back to the quantum physics and this unified field of energy that's around us, I'm going to pull out a bit of math from Nassim Haramein. So he wanted to quantify what the field was, this energy that is all around us, but it looks like nothing's going on, and that's because of the density of it. So essentially what he did was he took a centimeter cubed square of space, and he took our smallest identifiable unit of measurement, which is the Planck unit. The Planck unit is billions of times smaller than an atom. So he took the Planck unit, filled the centimeter cube square of space, and it came out to 10 to the 93 orders of magnitude, or 10 to the 93 grams of energy density. So to give you a comparison, if we were to take all of the information, all the stars, all the galaxies, all the planets in our known universe, the mass of the universe, it would come out to 10 to the 55 grams. So in every centimeter cube square of space, there are 10 to the 39 orders, or 10 with 39 zeros after it, of magnitude greater energy density in a centimeter cube square of space than all of the information in the known universe. But it's so infinitely dense. There's so much potential. There's so much energy in each centimeter cube square of space that it cancels out. So it looks like there's nothing going on. Meanwhile, we're floating in this. We're breathing it in. We are it, right? We can connect to it more fully. So every time we optimize, and this is me trying to bring this full circle again. Every time we optimize our frequencies, every time we structure our water, every time we, think about connect to more love, more wholeness, more bliss, more happiness, every time we use the breath, and there's some science about the pineal gland and activating that gland, which I'm not going to go into today because it's going to be another 45 minutes, but essentially we can activate this gland, we can turn on our latent systems, and we can connect more fully to this infinite field of energy. And all of the frequencies that we're using, that we're optimizing, that we're ingesting, all the tools that are at our disposal, they're a means of cleaning us up, of optimizing us, of increasing our level of vibration, our level of frequency, to a point where we then can connect fully to this infinite energy that's all around us. And when we do that, and I've seen people do it, and I've experienced it myself, it's like the electricity that moves through your body. I've had call them Kundalini experiences with and without medicines, where it's like my whole body was struck by lightning. And if you look at going back to science, if you look at the microtubules of the body, they've got these little hair-like substances all around the cells, all around your billions and billions of cells. When you are able to connect, when you're able to optimize these frequencies, when you're able to connect to this infinite, unlimited energy that's all around us, and this lightning goes through you, it's like it's going to allow those cells to upgrade, to emit more light, more photonic energy. And when you do that, when you come back to yourself, when you come back to your senses, quote unquote, you're going to be able to perceive more of this reality that's always been here, but we didn't have perceptual faculties to actually notice.
Powerful. Did that experience happen to you while on ayahuasca or psychedelic medicine?
So I've had several 5-MeO medicine journeys, which do you know the Bufo?
Sure. I've heard of it. I haven't had the experience myself.
Oh my God. So Aya is where it's maybe a 4 to 6 hour journey, depending on the medicine, and Mama Aya, she can take you to dark places or she can take you to light places. 5-MeO is about a 30-minute journey, and it's all bliss. Like I was the all, I was connected to the all, everything was happening for me. It was, there's just, and it's like when I came back to who I thought I was, any kind of unworthiness or anxiousness or that was a part of who I thought I was before is somehow more distant, and all that remains is connection and wholeness and love. So that was with the medicine, and I had an experience at a Dr. Joe Dispenza conference where just with the breath and meditation, it was literally, I was lying flat on the floor. All of a sudden, it felt like I was falling, and it felt like my brain and body had been struck by lightning. And it was frankly almost identical, a little bit lower because I don't feel like I went fully. because it kind of felt like it came out of nowhere and kind of jolted me. But it really felt like the 5-MeO experience. Like it felt very, very familiar. And that was without any exogenous substances. So we can get there through understanding how our neurophysiology works with the breath, through understanding the pineal gland. We can get there with the medicines. And for me, you know, I'll just one last little bit. Sorry, I'm
Oh no, this is great.
But for me, there, you know, every time we think a new thought, it builds a new neurology, right? But if we can't remember that thought, if we can't explain it to somebody else, that new neurology prunes apart in hours or days, right? But if we continue to return to it, right, then it strengthens that new neurology, right? So going from I suck, I can't do this, to I'm worthy, I'm divine, I'm blissful, right? Just creating those new thoughts. And the same thing with the medicine. You know, for me, it's like every time you access those states, something is happening in your brain. You're creating new neurology in the brain. And if you continue to access those states, and the brain is a problem-solving machine. So for me, it's like, I always ask myself when I go into a medicine journey, what is my brain going to have to remember in order to get back to this space without the medicine? Because I feel like we're fully capable of getting to these spaces, and these tools are just tools to take us there, to take us to more wholeness, to more love, to more oneness, to more gratitude, right? And when we build that new neurology, when we build the evidence, the physical evidence in the brain and body, the neurology, the chemistry, that future us, that future potential, that higher connection, that higher vibration, that higher frequency exists, it's only a matter of time before we walk into it.
Powerful. Very powerful. Yeah, this has been an absolute treat to get your perspective on so many things that complement or are part of the medicine path, or the path of mastery. Your understanding of, we've had so much goodness about the law of attraction and the power of our thoughts, neuroscience, plant medicine, quantum physics. Yeah, this has been absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and sharing your insights. If you were going to recommend to somebody that is earnestly seeking healing from trauma, that might be on the fence in regards to engaging these powerful disruptive healing technologies, what would you recommend for somebody that is looking to potentially heal with psychedelic medicines?
I mean, there's a spectrum, really, right? I think if you're open, curious, but maybe, you know, still a little hesitant, start with microdosing. You know, do just, and again, I would find a guide that knows what they're doing, that understands the different medicines and what they're going to do, that will be able to, I guess, journey with you. But start with microdose. You don't have to start with, you know, a full 5 grams and you don't have to blast right off. You can start and just see how it feels, right? I've got a friend that's creating a microdosing company from Vancouver with psilocybin, right? So you're going to start to, I think if you start to feel a little bit different, start to feel a little bit better, start to feel a little bit happier, that maybe is going to open you up a little bit more. And then you can get to a point where you're like, you know what? I'm ready. Like I want to go deep. I want to blast off. There's a great quote that says, I don't know if I'm going to butcher it or not, but sometimes we need to be out of our mind be out of our mind to come to our senses. Right. And so you may not want to start there, but it's like, if you can start with the microdosing and then get to a point where you feel comfortable enough and you have a guide and you have a space, because the space, the proper intentions and the proper setting are paramount. Like you need to set the intentions. You need to ask the medicine to teach you. You need to write down what you're willing to let go of, what you want to explore, you know, all of that stuff. when you do a deep dive into the medicine. But if you have a guide in the right space and the right intentions, then you can access that point. And I think it's again, there's such amazing tools, and chances are with your guide, you're going to find someone who is going to incorporate a little bit of breath work, right? So that's another tool that you're going to be able to use. So I think if you're just open to the experimentation with it, and you're open to finding someone, I mean, of course, still do your own research, but just be open and start slow and start with where you're comfortable. And then you can, like we said earlier, you can incrementally add until a point where you're like, hey, I'm good, I'm comfortable, I'm ready to go deep. And I think, as you entertain these and look at these as tools, and a means to feel better, your perspective is going to continue to shift, and you're going to see other areas and other ways and other means, other tools you're going to be able to add that are, before long, you're going to be optimizing how you're thinking, how you're feeling, and what you're creating in your life. Because at the end of the day, I feel like that's what we're here to do. We're here to learn. We're here to remember. We're here to heal and grow. And as we learn, as we come to truly know ourselves, we realize that we are unlimited beings. We can do or be anything we choose. But you can't get to that point unless you feel healthy, unless you feel happy, unless you feel worthy. And these are all tools that are going to help you to get to that point.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. I resonate with so much of the pragmatic, practical